So a couple of weeks ago, I decided I was going to paint a miniature using only sponges, and I made tiny little sponges to do it. And it did not go the way that I had hoped it would, but it went. And it turned out pretty good. So let me show you. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, I was painting this guy for War Machine, and I used a sponge because I wanted to try and get good looking wings. I'm going to try and show you the wings on this. And I was very happy with how they turned out. Like, I thought, man, forget being the best wings that I've ever painted. The model just turned out looking really, really good, and I was very, very happy with it. And I thought, well, it's kind of a bigger model, so can I paint a smaller one? And so last week I was painting this guy, which I know the model looks huge, but the model himself is actually just this little guy. And I did a lot of it with the sponge, and I thought, can I do the whole thing with the sponge? And those were both War Machine, okay? And War Machine models are heroic size, they have those bigger proportions. And I was like, well, I'm not always going to be painting heroic size stuff. Maybe I should try something that's a little less heroic sized. And I had this puppeteer model from Warcrow, and I thought that will be a very good test of whether or not I can paint everything with a sponge. And I don't mean everything, I just meant most things, like highlights and things you got to do with a brush. Eyes, could not even imagine trying to do those with a sponge. Got to do those with a brush. The finer details, I thought, let's see if I can do it everything but the finer details. And as I was painting this, I learned the hard truth. And the hard truth is you can't paint everything with a sponge. It's just too unmanageable. Whereas a brush has a nice little point, a tip, you can use the sides and things like that. The sponge kind of goes all over the place. And yes, you can do a lot to change that, which I do, but in the end, it is just too messy to do everything with the sponge, and I can only imagine the cleanup over and over and over again. So, is it worth doing? Yeah, heck yeah. I mean, this model has the best blending of any model I've ever done before, and I'll show you how I got there with the sponge, and I'll show you kind of the limitations that I received while trying to paint this that way. So, let's get into it. So how are we going to be doing things a little different? Well, instead of using paint brushes for most of what we're going to be doing, we're going to be using these bad boys. These are tweezers. Okay, and you can see this one is super fine, and this one is just like a standard pair of tweezers. But what are we going to be holding with these? Sponge. Okay, this is your typical makeup sponge, and I have taken it and cut it into a lot of smaller pieces. And we're going to paint an entire miniature using these sponges. Obviously, I'm going to do lines and highlights and things like that with a brush, but the mini that we're going to be painting is this fantastic Warcrow mini. And if you haven't looked into Warcrow, you should. It is amazing. It's from the creators of Infinity, so Corvus Belli, and it is just a fun, simple game to get into. It doesn't require a million units, and they got really cool stuff like this. Yes, she has 4 arms. 2 are giant arms that have been surgically put onto her body. So, anyway, let's get to it. So the first thing that I wanted to do with this is I wanted to have a zenithal highlight. Okay, and I wasn't going to spray it from the top. I didn't have a light can of spray I wanted to use. I'd actually heard that sponging the zenithal highlight was a really good way to do it and a quick way to do it, especially if you already have the stuff out. So I thought I was going to try that. My thoughts on this is that it's cool. It works relatively well. It's one of those things that you got to be careful that you don't have too much on the sponge, but you don't want too little of it, or then it's going to take a super, super long time. But in the end, I was actually pretty happy with how the zenithal highlight came out, and I was able to touch the spots specifically that I wanted to. Then I was able to jump in and do what I wanted to do the most. And as you can see, one of the things that I loved about the sponge is if you don't want it to be super thick, you don't have to do it super thick, and then the paint just comes off it super lightly. So those zenithal highlights that I was putting on there for a reason, they actually work. I mean, if you look at the areas where the red is going on, it's definitely lighter in those areas. And so it worked really, really well. And I wanted the red to look good. It was the focal point of doing this with a sponge, because I thought this has got a lot of area. It's big, it's all over, and I can do the highlights. And so after doing my first row of red, I went in with a smaller sponge and got all the little areas that I hadn't been able to reach before. And I mean, you can get the sponge pretty small. It's pretty cool how it actually worked out so nicely. And I'm not trying to be sloppy, but I'm definitely not going out of my way to be clean, because that's what I like about this. It's the slop and sponge, right? You can be sloppy, it doesn't matter. And then after doing that dark color, I started moving up. I went to a little bit brighter of a red, and I did a big area, not the whole area, focusing on those parts that were zenithal highlighted, keeping the nice corners and edges and everything really dark, while moving up to a brighter red in all the areas where I thought it was necessary. Once that was done, I let it dry, looked at it, and I thought, you know what? This is turning out really good. Let's up it again, and we moved to a brighter red. And here, just kind of to show you the process, it doesn't take that long, and I was able to come in with this brighter red and make it look really good. Look like I had been blending it for a while. And it's a quick blend, but it's a pretty good looking blend, in my opinion. I was very happy with how the robes turned out on this model, for sure. Now, after painting the robes of this model and getting that blending down and having it look in what my mind was so good, I thought there's got to be something else I can paint that way. And I started painting the arm, which I'll show you. And in the end, I could have done it, but there was so much that I had to go back and do with the brush anyway that I thought to myself, in the future, I'm going to stick to bottom levels of, the miniature. So whatever at the base, otherwise you're doing cleanup after cleanup after cleanup. Okay. And the big things, capes, clothes, stuff like that. And as long as you do that with the sponge, the painting process still goes really, really fast, because instead of painting, letting it dry, coming back and doing a second layer and a third layer and a fourth layer and a fifth layer, and blending in between all of that, I literally come in with my sponge, my 3 or 4 colors that I want to do, and I sponge, lighter, less, lighter, less, done. and it worked out really, really well. But those are the limitations of using the sponge. It's great for what it does, but it can't do everything. But it was able to do a little bit more on this, so let me get back to that. Okay, jumping back into this, I decided to move on from the robes and do the arms. And this is where I learned something very quickly. It worked. It worked fine, but I wasn't able to get into the deep spots. I wasn't able to get into the areas I really wanted to without going over the robes that I had just painted and just gotten to the point where I thought, man, these look good. And I was like, I do not want to screw this up. And so this is kind of where I learned, even with the small sponge, I'm not going to be able to get everything that I want. So is it faster to just brush these little things and move on? And that's what I did. Ultimately, I didn't like how light the arms were. I wanted the character to be pale, but I didn't want it to just be like super pale. And so I went back in with a darker skin tone to get the arms again and then work my way up. I feel like you got to start from the darks, work your way up, because the darks are in the cracks, and it's always easier to get the cracks first than it is to later. And so I was able to come back and now hit it with the original color and give it a nice human looking skin tone with the shades and everything else that it needed. And so I was really happy with how the arms all turned out. Now, I said before, this is a puppeteer. This is a class of character that alters their body and changes their body, and part of that is that she has 4 arms. And so there are orcs in this world that are blue orcs, And I thought, you know what would be cool? It's got these much bigger arms on it. Let's go blue. And so she has 2 human arms and 2 orc arms attached to her back. And I thought, yeah, I like that. And same thing. I just started with the dark blue and just moved up to a lighter blue that I really liked. And then just kind of did my best to blend it in, with which with a brush is pretty hard. It's kind of sad that the arms took as long as the entire robe set did. And I think the robes look better. the miracle of the sponge. But then I came in with the coal black that I absolutely love to paint this black stuff. This is the penalty for using magic. This black stuff is. And I thought to myself, you know what? This black stuff, I could paint it really quick with a sponge. And so I went back to my sponge and did the bottom of it, and it took no time at all. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to add some blue highlights to that. Give this dark tar-like black some nice blue highlights like Venom has from from the Spider-Man comics. And I always liked that black and blue contrast. I wanted to do a tiny bit of white on it as well, but in the end, I felt like I didn't need to do that. So I'm just hitting it here with the little sponge, doing all of the smaller black pieces and fixing it in the areas where I needed to, or I may have gone too far, just to make it all look nice and together. And then the last thing I had to do was the trim, the golden trim on the robe, which just kind of tied it all together. I thought about doing a non-metallic metal, but then I was like, no, I want this to be fast. I want to see how fast I can do this process and how well it all works with the sponge and if it all can kind of pull together. And I think it pulled together incredibly well. I was so happy with how this model turned out in the end, and it was quick. After doing all of that, after doing the brushing, doing the sponging, this is what the model ended up looking like in the end. And I cannot say just how happy I am with it. It turned out, and I know I always say this, it was the best thing that I've ever done. But the truth is it is. I look at this model and I think, whoa, I could put that on display in a case and be proud of that. And I am. And I mean, ultimately, that's the goal for me. Like, yes, I like to play the games. Yes, I think they're fun. But the main thing for me is making them look a way that I can be like, whoa, check out this work of art. I don't even have to say it's a miniature for whatever game. I can just say, this is a thing that I painted. And I'm super proud of it. So check it out. But anyway, it made me learn that in my quests to find the best way to paint, right? The sponge has a place. The sponge has a really cool place, and I will continue to use it moving forward just because I feel like the thing I struggle with, and I feel like a lot of people struggle with, is blending. Blending is hard. Sponge makes blending quick and easy, and it's super nice, and it's fun. Like glazing and things like that, it's cool. The end process, there is no denying how good it is. But man, it's just work. It's just a lot of work. And I'm not afraid of doing work, but I want to enjoy my hobby. I want to find it fun. And until I get to that point where doing those little things is something that's so like, I don't know, so incredible to me to do, I feel like the sponge is going to be my go-to for now. And maybe even then, maybe I'll just get to the point where I just don't think it's necessary. I don't know. Maybe I'll just get better with the sponge. You never know. But anyway, do you think that there's a place in painting for the sponge? Do you think that there's a place for slap chop? Do you think that these different styles have purpose? Or are they just stepping stones to get to something that's okay but not great? I mean, in your mind, what is the best way to paint competitively? I mean, will you use the sponge? Will you use the dry brush? Will you use these things? Or is it all just brushwork? I honestly want to know. And if somebody who has like won awards could tell me what they think, that would be awesome. So Anyway, thanks for joining us. And if you like this content, you want to see more, especially about Warcrow, War Machine, Infinity, drop a like, subscribe, stick around. Every week I'm putting out videos to show off what I'm painting, what I've learned, 3D printing, all the different things about tabletop gaming. It's just fun. Tabletop gaming is fun. It should be fun, and I try to make it more fun. And if that interests you at all, like, subscribe, stick around, hit that little bell, be notified next time when a video comes out, and we'd love to see you. Thanks for sticking around. And as always, don't spend so much time building your world that you forget to spend some time in it. Until next time.